to talk about today. But at the end, I'd love to share with you some free resources, some free gifts, and turn it open to open coaching. I know this is an unprecedented time right now. Many of you are going through a lot of upheaval, a lot of stress, and I'm here to help in any way I can, whether it's with self-mastery issues, whether it's with stress management, helping to stay calm in the midst of this chaos and so on. So with no further ado, I'd really like to talk about using this time today for self-mastery. I mean, in a way, this self-isolation, we have to be careful. First of all, how do we perceive this time? You know, there's a lot of the use of this word self-isolation, but really it's a time, I think, to look at how do we turn this into a massive opportunity for our own growth? How do we turn this into a time where we can, instead of feeling like our freedoms have been taken away from us, develop the inner freedom of going inward and developing our inner resources, as I call them. And so really, what is self-mastery? For me, self-mastery can mean many things. But today, I think really I'd like to delve into this notion of, you know, it's the freedom really to be or do or have anything you set your mind to. And I know that sounds like a huge, tall order, especially in the midst of this global pandemic. But what we can, oh, sorry, I'm just seeing that I can start my video here. Hopefully you'll be able to see me in a second. And really it's about saying to ourselves, okay, how can we use this time to not only take a pause, but to say to yourselves, let's take an inventory of where are we in relation to all the major areas of our lives, whether it's our health, our wealth and finances, our relationships, whether those are relationships with spouses or children or friends or other family, co-workers, our career and work. You know, I know many people have been furloughed at the moment, and even if you haven't been, you're looking at massive changes in terms of how we're working. We're having to really open up our minds to being creative. And I think it's also a really good time to sit back and reflect and say, you know, if we're going to be in this mode of self-mastery, that really means tapping into our passions, our purpose, and what can be our contribution to not only ourselves and our families and perhaps where we work or in our workplace, but in our communities and globally. You know, we're all so connected now with technology and so on. And so I think this can be a massive opportunity for all of us to just say, okay, what is, and so how can we make the best of this? How can we develop ourselves so that when we all get out the other side of this, which we know we will, how can we come out better, stronger, more resilient, more capable? And so that's really what I'd like all of us to focus on today and during the time that, you know, we are in this stay-at-home mode. So in order to do that, I'd really just like to take a quick look at how do we maximize our results? How do we really get from where we are to where we'd want to be? And so really it's understanding this, what I call this thoughts to results loop. Really everything starts with a thought. And, you know, thoughts in our mind, they create certain feelings. And, you know, we've all had that experience, I'm sure, of perhaps waking up from a bad dream in the middle of the night, and you know, our heart is racing and we're perhaps sweating, and we wake up just terrified because we've had this really bad dream. And it's interesting because our body can't tell the difference between something real and something imagined. And so our thoughts are incredibly powerful. So as we catch ourselves in the midst of this pandemic, perhaps feeling a little bit of fear, you know, watching the news reports in different parts of the world, you know, here we've been really blessed, and, you know, I'm so thankful for the situation that Turks and Caicos finds themselves in, because we've been weathering this storm quite well. And but in many parts of the world, if you're watching the news, it's understandable that that fear can start to build up. And that's because of, not necessarily because of what you're looking at, but it's what are you saying to yourself about what you're seeing. It's the thoughts and it's the meaning that we're giving those things. And so what happens generally then is that as these thoughts create these feelings in our body, if we keep that loop going, so then as we feel perhaps more and more scared or sad or helpless or whatever the feeling is, it then creates a loop back to our brain. So our body then sends a message back to the brain to say, this is how we're feeling. So then it generates a loop where that thought then gets reinforced, which creates more feelings that are the same. And we get this loop where the thoughts and feelings just keep going around and around and get stronger and stronger. And when that happens, what happens there is, if it gets reinforced long enough, it literally becomes a belief. We have a belief about either ourselves or the world around us. And the powerful thing about understanding the science behind beliefs is that once you have a belief about something, the science has proven that it's absolutely almost impossible. Anything's possible, but it's very, very difficult to take an action that's inconsistent with our belief structure. And then, of course, the actions we take then determine the results we get in life. And then the results we get, of course, then create certain thoughts and feelings. And then we just get this loop happening. And so as you can see, that sometimes that spiral gets going upward when we're feeling good about something, but then it can start to go downward and feel worse and worse. And our results get less and less if the thoughts and feelings are getting reinforced in a disempowering way. And so I hope that is really clear, because normally when I would do this kind of a demonstration or discussion in a workshop, there's so many other demonstrations that I can do physically with participants to show how literally the body and mind are connected. And so really that's the foundation of your self-mastery. It's kind of going inward, and without any self-judgment and without any beating up on yourself, just take that time to just sit quietly and take some deep breaths, focus on your breathing, and just kind of notice, how am I feeling? What thoughts are going through my head? And just not to really get caught up in them or too identified with them, but it's kind of like you're just a witness to them, just kind of curious, I would say. And then from there, that's where you can kind of say, so I'm feeling this way. And then that is your position of power. That's where you can start to say, sorry about that. That's where you can start to say, okay, how can I interrupt this loop? And so whether you catch it in the stage of you notice a thought going through your mind, which then right away you can interrupt that loop before it gets going. Or perhaps you're feeling like, oh yeah, I'm home and I don't know what's going on here. There's so much negative news. You start to feel like, oh, I don't have the motivation. I don't feel like doing much. I'm just going to lie around. Well, of course, if you start noticing that, then that's in the actions area. So then you can kind of back yourself up and say, okay, well, what must I believe right now? What must be going on inside of me? And then you can kind of back your way up into kind of understanding where your thoughts and feelings have really created a belief inside of you, so that you can just bust through that and reinforce a new, more empowering belief so that you can get better results. So why am I so passionate about this topic? Well, I've seen over the 30 years I've been involved in personal development that this one element of understanding how your thoughts create your results is the one thing that can really make or break your results and your happiness and your ability to thrive. And I really want all of us to succeed and to thrive, because when one of us succeeds, we're all succeeding. I think we can all agree right now, more than ever, the world is really waking up to this idea that we're all in this together, that we're all interdependent, we're all interconnected. And so it's really important that all of us are learning tools to be the best version of ourselves that we can be at any given time. Because then as all of us are leveling up, as all of us are coming more from a place of calm and thriving, then we will just exude that out into the world and everybody will benefit. As I mentioned, your beliefs can either support you or they can create blocks, whether that's to your abundance, your health, your ability to have thriving relationships. Your belief structure really gets in the way if it's disempowering you to taking the actions and having the results that you want. And so if there's an area of your life where perhaps you're not getting the results that you'd like, then really it's just not about beating up on yourself, getting upset with yourself. It's just noticing, taking an inventory, and then setting some new goals. Because once we can align our goals and our beliefs, then everything just flows. We have this good timing and things, we're in that, what athletes would call the flow state. Things just kind of, a person will call you out of the blue with just the most amazing opportunity. The emails come in as they're meant to, the support, the money, the friends, the relationships, everything just comes without a lot of struggle. And so one of the indicators of whether or not you are in that alignment is if you're feeling like you're struggling. And if you're taking some actions, but you're not seeing the results, it's usually because you're taking some actions, but a part of you doesn't believe it's possible or doesn't believe that you're capable of making that happen, or that it can achieve the result that you're looking for. And so, lack of belief, as I just said, can mean struggle. It can mean disappointment. It can mean lack of clarity or direction. So if you're feeling any of that right now, just know that that's usual, especially in a time of chaos. But it's it's just an indicator. It's just guidance. It doesn't mean that something's good or bad. It just is. It's just information. And, you know, I want all of us to really thrive in this pandemic. And so, you know, net worth, in my definition, is not just about your financial results and your financial net worth. You know, as a CPA, it used to be that I would be responsible for calculating the financial net worth of companies and individuals. But what I found is that a far more important indicator of whether someone's financial net worth is increasing or not is really their self-worth, their belief structure. When the people are feeling really good and confident and empowered, then usually their net worth goes hand in hand. So let's use this time in this stay-at-home time, I want to call it, where we can really work on ourselves. We can really take an inventory of, you know, where are all the places where perhaps I've been saying, oh, if I only had a day to do X, Y, or Z, I would have loved to have done this. Or maybe it's a new skill. Maybe it's something that if you can learn it either through books or audiobooks or online trainings, you will be so much more valuable to your employer, and or if you are the employer, then to your teams and your staff. Now's the time to really level up our game so that when we come out the other side of this, we have the ability to really be our best selves. And so, as Sonia mentioned in the introduction, Jack Canfield is my mentor. I've been following and studying his work for 30 years now. And this photo was taken just back in November when I spoke at the Wealth Mastery event, and he was one of the keynote speakers. And one of Jack's simplest principles that's in the book, The Success Principles, that we always teach is this concept of E plus R equals O. And that means the event in our life, plus our response to that event determines our outcome. So we had this event called Global Pandemic Coronavirus, COVID-19, stay at home, shelter in place situation, curfews in Turks and Caicos, whatever you want to call all of that. So right now, I want you to decide, because it's decision time. How do you want to respond to that event? Because that's going to determine your outcome. Who do you want to be in this moment? This is the time for all of us to really dig deep and say, when I look back on this in 5 or 10 years, or I'm telling my children or grandchildren about this time 20, 30 years down the road, how do I want to, what story do I want to tell them about this time? This is a time in history that we're making together, not just in our community in Turks and Caicos, but around the world. And we all have our part to play. And so how do you want to show up right now? How do you want to show up for yourself? How do you want to show up for your kids and your families and your teams and your community? And so that's really the mainstay of, in my coaching, whether it's one-on-one or in groups or online trainings, what I focus on is helping people get the tools that they need to manage that to manage that response. And, you know, so we could say to ourselves, okay, well, why is life doing this to me? Why is life bringing this COVID? Why have I been furloughed? Why is my business in lockdown and I have no money coming in? Why? Or we can say, I'm responsible for my ability to respond, right? look at that word responsibility, ability to respond, and to take responsibility for your own inner state so that you can show up as your best self. So, as I mentioned, what's your story? What's your story going to be in this? You know, think about this maybe and do this as a little homework exercise. You know, journal about this. If you're writing this story about this moment in time and you're writing it from 5 years from now, looking back, think about how you'd write that story. How is that going to look? Because the more you can focus on that, it becomes an empowering experience. It becomes something where the world is banding together, where we're all focused on helping one another, where the earth is rebalancing itself. We've already seen so many positive indicators about, you know, the air quality cleaning up and the oceans and rivers getting more clear and so on. So what is your story going to be? And, you know, after we have life's little detours, sometimes it's time to really just totally reinvent yourself. You know, I've had to do that on several occasions in my life. Whether it was when I first moved to Turks and Caicos, that was a main thing. I moved here in 1996 from Canada. And, you know, I've changed my business many times. I've gone through divorce. I've had lots of opportunities where I have really had to step up and say, okay, who do I need to be in this moment to really succeed at this? What qualities, what inner resources do I need? And so whether it's through the training that I've done with Jack Canfield or Brian Tracy or Tony Robbins, all the people that I've studied with over the years, I've really nailed this down to what I call my 5 steps to freedom. Because at the end of the day, when we want to succeed, when we want to be a master of ourselves, I think really the foundation of that, the underpinning of all that, is that we just want to feel free. We want to be free of stress. We want to be free to just be ourselves, our real true selves, you know, so we're not worrying about what others are thinking of us or saying about us. We want to be free to pursue our passions and the work that we would like. And really at the first step of that is what I call calm. It's learning the tools to master the art of being calm, even in the midst of chaos. And recently I said to myself, okay, how do I want to show up in this time? What can I do? What tools do I have? What skills do I have that I can give back to people at this time? And so I created a free Facebook group, and I called it Staying Calm in the Chaos, because I know right now people are fearful and they're scared and they're panicking. And I know that when you get into that fear, then it creates certain thoughts and feelings and beliefs, and it affects our ability to get the results we want. And so really at the end of the day, it's about learning those tools. So at the end, I will be more than happy to give you the information about how to join that Facebook group. It's totally free. I've done lots of videos on all the tools you need to stay calm and to be clear. And, you know, here in Turks and Caicos, we're no strangers to hurricanes and other kinds of chaos. And, you know, the analogy I use is the hurricane one, where, you know, in a hurricane, the wind will blow and howl and the storm will rage on, and the trees with the deepest roots are the ones that don't break and blow over. And so we need to get those deep roots right now. We need to learn how to stay grounded and centered and calm, so that as this chaos is whirling around, we can thrive in the midst of that. The second step is really just about getting clear. It's clarity on, well, where am I? How am I feeling? What am I afraid of? How can I overcome the beliefs that I have? Um, where where am I holding myself back? Are there tools? Are there skills that if I learned them during this period of time, I would come out the other side of this with so much more um, value to my employer, to my community, to my family. And then really it's about developing courage. I say courage is like a muscle. You have to build it. You have to work it. And so the reason this feels so uncomfortable for all of us right now is because we are outside our comfort zone. Our brain doesn't like things that are unfamiliar. Your mind is saying to you, whoa, this whole pandemic, this whole staying home, not, all these new ways of having to deal with this situation, very unfamiliar. And so it creates an uncomfortable feeling. But once we get outside our comfort zone and we take some new actions and we overcome that fear a little bit, then it builds up confidence. We can say to ourselves, well, that wasn't as bad as I thought it would be. And I'm getting better at this every day. And this too shall pass. And all of the self-talk starts to get going in an upward momentum. And let's be honest, right now, in this, in the world, there's a big sea of no, right? No, we can't do this. It's bad news. It's whatever. But I would encourage you to find your yes. Don't take all of this fear in. Make sure you are surrounding yourself with positive and uplifting people who will hold you accountable to your goals and to your routines, and to encourage you and motivate you and cheer you on. We need lots of cheerleaders right now. And then when you get through that stage, you really you get to that step where I call it conviction. It's this place inside of you that is like an inner knowing, where you know that no matter what is going on in the world, you are good. You know that you have the tools, the resiliency, the inner resources to thrive no matter what the situation, because you know how to get back into your calm place. You know how to look at things dispassionately and with clarity. You know how to step up and have courage when it's difficult. You have increasing levels, more and more self-esteem and self-confidence. And really the last tip is what I say is isolating yourself. It's normal when you're fearful, when you're feeling doubtful, when you are lacking clarity, to kind of pull back and isolate. And so now more than ever, we have to reach out, whether it's in Facebook groups or online or over the phone or Zoom calls, whatever it is. Make sure you are reaching out. We can social distance, but we don't have to socially isolate. We can stay connected in new ways, and the more and more we practice it, the more it will feel like our new normal, and it will be easy to do. So in terms of your goals during this time period, you can look back at this chart and say, okay, well, which one of these steps am I having the most trouble with? And then to set some goals to say, okay, well, what's one small thing I could do during this time? And, when I'm coaching people, normally what I see in terms of when people are not really getting to where they want to be, often it's because they've set this massive goal, which is awesome to do. Jack Canfield calls that a breakthrough goal. And it's important to have those really big, hairy, audacious goals. But at the same time, it can set you up to fail. It can set you up to when you don't get there as quickly as you think you should, to feel demoralized and to get the negative beliefs back into. So I would say start with small goals. Chunk it down, I call it. Take a goal that you have. So maybe it's your health. Maybe you want to use this time when we have our access to go outside and exercise. Maybe it's a simple one, like every single day I will go outside and walk, or I will go outside and ride my bike. And put it in your calendar. Put it, whether you're using Google Calendar or Outlook or whatever you're using, literally put it in your calendar so that a reminder will pop up 10 minutes before and remind you, because these, when you're doing a new routine, it's easy to get off track. Science has shown that literally the act of writing down our goals, you are 80% more likely to actually achieve them than if you just, decide in your mind. And so when you chunk it down and you start slow and you pick something that you can realistically achieve, then what happens is it starts to build confidence, and you build this momentum of positivity, which gets that loop, that thoughts to results loop going upward. And so the trick is start small, start slow, and build momentum with consistency. And at the end of your day, I'd highly recommend just focus on your wins. Keep a journal by your bed and just write down what you won at today. Because as you saw in that graphic, I'll go back here just briefly, your thoughts create your feelings and your beliefs and your actions. So right before you're about to go to sleep at night, your subconscious is so open to suggestion. So rather than watching the news right before you go to bed, which of course is going to create feelings of fear and negativity, which then goes into your subconscious, let's put in some positivity. Let's focus on what were the things that you won at. So it could be something as simple as, I set my goals for the day and I achieved them. Or it could be, I really sat down with my team and I had an amazing Zoom call. Or it could be that you really got present with your kids or your spouse and you had an awesome hour together, you did an activity together, whatever it is. Really focus on your wins and activate the feeling inside of you. And write that down in your journal. What was the feeling? Because again, it's the thoughts and the feelings together. You have to get back into your body around this. This isn't only a mental exercise. This is about activating inside of you those emotions, because then when you're feeling good like that in your body sends a message back to your brain that says, oh, all is well, things are good. And then you can get back into that spiral of positivity. I would also say to keep a routine, but loosely. Meaning, make sure that the foundations of your day, which are self-care, right? You have to get enough sleep, water, vitamins, relaxation, fun, exercise, all the things you need to keep your immune system functioning well, to keep your mental and physical health and your emotional health at the top of its game. It's important that you keep a semblance of a routine, also because it tells your brain, there's still some familiarity. If you go completely off your routine, your mind is not going to like that, because it feels completely unfamiliar and it will just amp up the fear inside of you. And as I mentioned, surround yourself with positive people and content. Stay informed, for sure, but don't be glued to the negative news cycle. It is not going to be good for how you're feeling and your thought process. And really, it's about focusing on too, like, how do you want to feel when you've achieved your dreams, whatever it is. Focus now on imagining, how will life be for you at the end of this pandemic? And imagine it in your mind's eye, like it's already happening today. Like, you know, I say to people, you know, think of a word or a phrase or an image to describe that state of being that you want, and just imagine it. And so I know I'm going a little bit long here. I want to leave some time for questions, but normally I would just walk everybody through a little exercise. And for now, I would highly encourage you to go to that Facebook group. I'll leave the information at the end, and go back through some of the videos. There's some great exercises in there about how to stay calm. And so, you know, if you're really ready to how are you going to show up? How are you going to make this vision of how you want this time to be now and after the pandemic has passed? Are you really ready to make this the best year? Are you going to manage that response and say, you know what, I am going to step up and I'm going to make the best of this. I'm not going to let this derail my results. And if you do that and you stay positive and you learn the tools and you build the momentum, start with you know, small goals and build up consistently, then you will come out the other side of this thriving. And so I just want to thank you for your attention. You guys have been awesome. I know that was a lot of information to throw at you. And so, you know, to thank you for your attention. I know we still have quite a few participants online right now. Even if people are watching this on the replay, reach out to me if there's anything I can help any of you with. It'd be my honor to help in whatever way I can. You know, I really want our community to band together to help one another. So if you email me at lisa@lisacavender.com, you could either book a 30-minute coaching session. As I mentioned, I'll send you the link to the private Facebook group. And also for any who would like it, I would be more than happy to send the link to how to download the Secret to Wealth Volume 2, that book that I did with Brian Tracy. I did an audio book which is just an excerpt. It's 1 hour of runtime, so it's still quite a bit of content. And hopefully that would also help you. My contribution to that book was building your self-worth to grow your net worth. Some of the content is similar to what we discussed here today, but I think you'll find lots of additional resources. So I wish you much success and lots of health and wealth and happiness always, not just during this time, but always. And thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Lisa. If we were in a room, I'm sure we would all be applauding right now, but thank you so much for that. So many things that we can take away with us today. I like the idea of encouraging folks to start to journal exactly what their experiences are during this time. That's definitely one of the things that I'm going to take away and do, because I think that for us, this is going to be a time where not only do we, focus on how quickly things can change, but the way that we adapt to this change, the strengths, the weaknesses that we find, and how we decide to move forward. Once we start assessing all of those things, I think that all of that is ideal for us to take away today and think some more about. So thank you so much for that. We didn't have any questions in the Q&A section, but we do want to give you guys an opportunity. If you do have any questions, you can ask them at this time. You can either tap into the chat area, you can use the raise your hand option, or you can go ahead and put it in the Q&A section if you don't want to speak. Up to you.
Yeah, and just so people know too, if they're not familiar with Zoom, if you click on the to box, you can send the questions privately. So you could send it privately to me. So if you click on there, you'll see, oh, you can send it to the host or to just certain panelists and attendees. And then that way, if you have a question, we don't need to identify who it's coming from.
Mm-hmm.
And also, if anybody's found this of value today, you know, I'd love to hear from you. What part of that really resonated? Is there other trainings that you'd love to see? You know, I'm happy to create some more content for this community, whatever I can do. You know, if there's something that's more tourism related that I could customize for your industry, just, you know, let me know.
Thank you. Yes, and we do encourage you guys to give feedback. You can always send it afterwards to us as well at TCHTA if you wish. And of course, we encourage you to drop a comment under the Facebook post and let others know how much you enjoyed it. So Lisa, we do have one question. Is there a daily mantra and meditation you utilize to center your mind? If so, can you describe it a bit?
Okay, absolutely. Thank you for that question. I'll answer it in two parts. One, if you're new to meditation or mindfulness or relaxation exercises, I'll start there. And then if you aren't new, then I can give you some different kind of guidance. So if you're new to meditation, first of all, what does it mean to meditate? I've been meditating and I've trained and studied and teach all different forms of meditation, but really meditation, it sounds like this sort of way out word, and what is that exactly? And, you know, only people who do yoga meditate or whatever. Like it's meditation is just a gateway, vehicle to still and calm your mind so that all of the chatter can go away, so that your own inner guidance can come through, so that clarity can come through. So, you know, we've all had that experience of, you know, just having like a great idea pop into our mind. And that's because we were in that stillness, that calm. We were doing something usually where we're feeling like we're in the flow, whether it's we're exercising, we're driving, we're in the shower, whatever. We're doing something where we're focused on one task that isn't complicated, but it's focusing our mind so that the rest of the world just kind of melts away. So sometimes people who are runners experience that because they're just focused on one step in front of the other. Or perhaps people who knit or do puzzles or whatever. So anything, doing dishes, cleaning, you know, anything can be a meditation really. And it's about how do you focus your mind on one thing so that the rest of it goes away. And so if you haven't found that thing yet, I would highly encourage you to just breathe. So if everybody can just play along now, I would say there's many different types of breathing, but right now, when we're all in the midst of a lot of fear, it's really important to breathe out longer than we're breathing in, because we're just breathing out the tension. So in the Facebook group, there are lots of maybe 3 or 4 videos where I walk through this in a lot of detail. So go through that. And if you're still having some questions, get back to me. But let's just focus on our breathing and put your attention not in your mind, but on your breath. Because being able to center your mind, ironically, is about getting out of your mind, because the mind will just be in this endless loop. So the more you can connect with your body and get it back to feeling and sending calm, and then it sends a message to our brain that all is well. Not only does that help us center, but then this prefrontal cortex, which is the executive decision-making function, the ability to solve problems, our ability to see the bigger picture, all of that we then have access to. When we're in that fight or flight or freeze, we don't have access to this part. So let's just do a little breathing. So if you put your hand on your chest and then put your other hand on your solar plexus in your stomach, then you're going to see, where are you breathing from right now? Are you breathing from up here? So when we get fearful, we have a tendency to kind of hold our breath, or, we're breathing very shallowly or fast. So it's just kind of gently noticing. So breathe, and you can close your eyes if you want. And just put your awareness on your body. And take another deep breath. And breathe in through your nose and out through your mouth. And in through your nose and out through your mouth. And then just notice, where are you breathing from your chest or from your belly? Try to get that breath deep into your belly as much as possible. And then what I would also ask you to do is, we're going to breathe in for 4, hold it for 2, and then breathe out for 8. So let's breathe in, hold, breathe out. Breathe in, hold, breathe out. 2 more. And so just put in the chat, like, has that allowed your body to just calm down a little bit? Are you feeling a little bit more centered? Is your mind a little bit more clear? If you did that exercise where you're just focusing on your body, putting your attention on your breathing, it becomes its own mantra in a sense. So if you did want to use a mantra is just a repetitive phrase that you use so that the mind can focus on that, so that all the other chatter can disappear. So anything can be a mantra. If any of you know of Deepak Chopra, I'm so excited. I'm going to be sharing the stage with him, hopefully in September, but that event may be delayed or postponed to next year, unfortunately, because of the COVID-19 situation. But he has a lot of meditations where he focuses on mantras that are Indian or Sanskrit words. You could pick anything that's a mantra, meditation, or a mantra. It could be an affirmation. So if you're trying to learn how to be more calm, you could say, I am calm. I am calm. I am calm. Or you could say, all is well. All is well. Anything you want. So really, it can be an individual. The thing is to pick something that your mind and your belief system actually can believe. Because if you pick a mantra that's too grandiose, a part of you that doesn't believe it will put resistance in there, and then you're just creating more stress rather than having it be a benefit. So that's why I find that focusing on the body is the best way to center your mind and just to focus on your breathing. And so you could just say, for example, as a mantra, you could say in, out, in, out in your mind, to the rhythm of your breathing, if you need your mind to have something else to focus on. And then that way there's no judgment, that there's no emotion wrapped up in those words. It's just in and out. And you could say in with calm, out with fear, in with calm, out with stress. That could be another one. There's so many different variations. So just play around with it and let me know how it's going with that.
That was fantastic, Lisa. Thank you so much. I enjoyed that immensely. Thank you also to the participant for that question. That was amazing, I'm sure, for most of us. There's one more. I hope that we can squeeze this one in. What are some of the activities that can be used to evaluate what one may need to focus on to master, instead of grabbing at all of the different free courses and all of these other things coming at us? And they want you to answer this outside of the self-evaluate that was mentioned earlier.
Okay, so if I'm understanding the question, it's rather than trying to do a little bit of everything, how do I know what element of self-mastery I should focus on right now? Is that correct?
Yes, that's what I gather from this.
Okay,
yes.
So I think, if you knew before this COVID situation that there was something that you really had a burning desire and passion to learn, or a skill to develop, and you just didn't have the time because work and kids and family, it was just too overwhelming, then I would say go with that. Something that's just an absolute passion that is going to light you up and make you feel really fulfilled, then do that. But if you're not sure what that passion is, or you don't have that burning desire for something, I think the most important thing all of us can do right now is to develop a relationship with ourselves. And, the tagline for Innergy is wellness and success from the inside out. Because as I talked about today, we can't take actions that are inconsistent with our belief structure. And the way that we can get at what are we believing, what's holding us back, where are we getting in our own way in life, is sitting with ourselves in our bodies, just becoming aware of how do I feel? What's going on inside of me? Really developing a relationship with our inner world, because the more inner freedom we have, the more outer freedom we're going to have. The more inner resources we have, the more outer resources we will have. And it all starts from in here. So the more you can just sit and do these breathing exercises and show up in the Facebook group and learn those tools, whether it's some of the relaxation exercises I gave in that group, whether it's the calming tools. I've taught some energy work in that group, how to keep our energy really high. That's where it all starts.